Just fine. I'm Kate Stevenson from the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and from Top of the Morning from Baltimore.
Wonderful.
We are so thrilled and we want to congratulate you for this award, and tell us how you were feeling with your grandchildren and children seeing what you've accomplished.
Well, I'm thrilled about that because it's really important for them to know of the courage of the women at Seneca Falls. It's the birthplace of women's rights, and I think they would take great pride in learning more about it. I am myself personally thrilled to be getting this award. I thank Beth and Beverly, co-presidents of the Hall of Fame, for this wonderful honor, and I'm pleased to be joining so many wonderful other inductees today. That's really making it even more thrilling. But as far as Maryland is concerned, that's where I was born and raised, and one of our colleagues from Maryland will be here, Congresswoman Donna Edwards. She'll be coming up. Congress has adjourned, and they're on their way. We thought there might be more activity, but
we want to invite you to the Maryland Women's Heritage Center when you get back to Maryland.
Thank you for the invitation. Anytime. I'd love to do that. That's easy from D.C. Thank you.
Well, much love from Maryland and Baltimore.
Thank you.
So conservative on so many other issues as president, but yet he led on the issue of PEPFAR. On these social conservative issues, can you imagine, whether it's gay rights, whether it's abortion, whether it is women's reproductive health more broadly, any of these other issues on which we are so polarized now, can you imagine a similar transformation happening in any of the conservative figures?
Oh yes, I do. I always say, to us it is inevitable, to them it is inconceivable. It is our job. It's our job to shorten the distance between the inevitable and the inconceivable. But it takes not only our work inside to maneuver and persuade, the outside mobilization is absolutely essential. In almost every issue that you can name, the American people are ahead of the elected officials.
On the issue of the spread of time that you have spent in Congress, you came to Congress elected 25 years ago, and you've written about how you expected to have a 10-year time frame. You got 10 years of what you're going to devote to this, and then next chapter of your life would start. What did you think the next thing you would do would be after those 10 years? And once you were in Congress, did you ever think about leaving? Did you ever think about going home? Once you landed, did you know that you just wanted president?
Well, I didn't come here to be a lifer, if that's what you mean. No, I figured about 10 years would be an appropriate time. And then I would hopefully by then have grandchildren, which was my goal in life, and I went on this year, Madeline, and that was great. I really wasn't thinking, I didn't even know I was going to be running for Congress 25 years and 5 months ago. It just happened, the opportunity presented itself, and Thomas Burton, a woman, member of Congress, who decided that I should be a member of Congress. Now, this has happened with men in the history of our country, but when Sala did it, it was like, who said she could anoint somebody? But in any event, I promised her I would run. I did. I didn't know if I would win. It was a tough race, but I did. And so I came, and then we lost. It's one word. One word, women. More women in power. So, if we really want our country to grow economically and in every way, the involvement of women, whether it's in small businesses or entrepreneurial spirit or it's in educated innovation in the classroom, we really are best is yet to come for our country because more opportunity for what? 17 or is it 19 of CEOs of the Fortune 500 are women? You can't be telling us that the talent is not there. And what I told that lovely audience that day, and supposedly it was a conservative school in Texas, I don't know, they were lovely, What I told him that day is we must reduce the role of money in politics. We must. We've got to take it to like public funding of campaigns, and we must increase the level of civility in campaigns. And here comes the promise. And when we do, I promise you, we will have many more women elected to public office. I'll tell you one more story. I'll tell you this story. Many of you probably heard me tell this before, but I can't leave the Sewell Belmont House and Museum without telling it again. And I'll give you the abbreviated version. You may not think it is, but it is. And that is the following. We walk upstairs and we see Susan B. Anthony and we see Alice Paul, and oh my gosh, how wonderful all of that is. Imagine her, the women who came here and plotted and planned a women's party and all that. First day I went to the White House as representing the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Went to the White House, been there a million times, didn't even think about being apprehensive about the meeting. And so I go into the room, the door closes behind me, and as I begin to sit down at the table, I realized that this was unlike any other meeting I had ever been to at the White House. In fact, it was unlike any meeting that any woman had ever been to at the White House. Because it was a meeting of the leadership, the President, the Vice President, and the leaders, House and Senate, Democratic and Republican, to sit down and talk about the legislative agenda. Now, women have been at the table, appointed by the President, and that's a wonderful thing. What I was sitting there with my power derived from the election of my colleagues, not the appointment of one person. So my voice at that table had a different authority, for lack of a better word. So anyway, we go in the room, there's President Bush, gracious and lovely as ever, and said, welcome to you, blah, blah, blah. And as he's speaking, I really closed in my seat. I mean, it was like I was really closed in my seat. I've never had that experience before or since. Really closed in my seat. And he must have been thinking, what's going on there? But he probably would have been thinking that anyway. So, all of a sudden I realized that on that chair with me, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Alice Paul, Lucretia Mott, they were all there. Sojourner Truth, they were all there on that chair. And I could hear them say, at last we have a seat at the table.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. Where's your votes?
Is the most powerful woman in American politics and the most powerful House Speaker since Sam Rayburn a half century ago. So, it is without, I don't need to say more. I am so delighted to welcome Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi.
It's so wonderful to be here on this distinguished, I guess we're a panel, Secretary Rice and Senator Mikulski. I had the privilege just a short while ago to host in the Capitol a reception honoring Senator Mikulski for being the longest serving woman in the United States Congress, and as she said, the first woman elected to the Senate in her own right, not following her footsteps. Just about longevity, it's about the quality of her service and leadership in the Congress. We take some pride that she served some time in the House, but also in the Senate. And I associate myself with her comments and those of Secretary Rice when we talk about the challenges that face the world and our country, but the world, that almost every answer when you say increased empowerment of women, more involvement of women's leadership, whether it's the growth of our economy, whether it's the security of our military, whether it's the education of our children and lifetime learning, whether it's health care, whatever the subject, it is better served
by much more participation of women in leadership roles. I went to the same high school Barbara Mikulski did, and I too played half-court basketball. And for Patsy Mink, it became a symbol of discrimination that she was bound to fight. Senator Bai, it's an honor always to be with you. I had the privilege of speaking at the Indiana Democratic Party Jefferson-Jackson dinner about a month ago, and when I talked about you and the fact that we would be gathered here in just a few short weeks to commemorate and celebrate the anniversary of Title IX and talked about your leadership role, it was the most exciting response from your friends in Indiana. So I've had the privilege of talking about you in Indiana and Patsy Mink in Hawaii. And I would like to take a moment, being a House member, to spend a moment on Patsy Mink. Our daughter Wendy is here. Where's Wendy? Wendy, right there. Hi, Wendy, right in front of my very eye. Wendy knows how much members of the House revered Patsy Mink. Patsy Mink was a person who never took no for an answer. So the fact is, if you wanted to save time, you just said yes right from the start. And that is what the Speaker of the House at that time learned when Patsy decided that she was going to pass the Title IX language in the House of Representatives. It was tough times in the House. I mean, when I went 25 years ago, I'm celebrating my 25th anniversary now in June, this June, but when I came, there were about 24, maybe 24 women in the House. Barbara, when you went there, even fewer. Yes. And so and it wasn't that long, much before, but then when Patsy was there, even fewer. So she had to sell to this practically all-male body that it was important for Title IX language to be included in the bill. It was tough because, you know, as you know, it's Donna DeVerone, I see Donna, that coming over year in and year out, we had to fight to continue to keep it all intact because everybody thought it was a zero-sum game. If women were getting more, then men must be getting less. That wasn't the point. Our country was getting a tremendous benefit. So anyway, Patsy Mink, let me just give you this example. I think it's important that you know Patsy because she's a beautiful, great person. So brilliant, the first in many ways. The first Asian American woman to practice law in Hawaii. I think the first woman, Asian American woman to go to the University of Michigan Law School. Chicago University, a new one of the top law schools in the country. Everything, the first. So one day she said to me, somebody's opposing me in the primary, and I need you to come to Hawaii to speak for me at my dinner. Oh, well, when is it, Patsy? It's such and such a date. That's when it has to be. It's that date. So I said, well, that's really too bad because I have my neighborhood meetings in San Francisco, and I fly from San Francisco, Washington on Friday, have my neighborhood meetings on Saturday and Sunday. So I really can't go. And she said, well, what time are you meeting? I said, well, they go like 9 to 12 each day. She said, well, good. You can be on the 1 o'clock to go to Hawaii. You can speak at the event, and then you get off. Go back to the airport, take the red eye. You'll be back in time for your meetings on Saturday, Sunday. Just as an example. Of course, I went. I said, well, she all stretched us all to our limits, and that was just a modest example of how. But she never took no for an answer, and that is what the Speaker of the House learned at that time. It's a very tough vote. Could have come down to one vote. I know, Wendy, will you be telling about what happened the night? No, okay. Well, in any event, a personal intervention that maybe she wouldn't be able to be on the floor the day of the vote, and that could have sunk the whole ship, but she got the Speaker not only to say we bring it up once, but more than once, so that in fact it could be, the House could fulfill its obligation to women. And whether it has been said, it's not just about sports, it's about education and opportunity. And of course, Senator Bai's leadership, Senator Mikulski mentioned Marvella, as she was such a wonderful, lovely lady. In my understanding, I didn't know this until tonight, earlier today, Marvella told him
We can't afford to ignore the development of 53% of the brain power in our country. So I know that she was a wonderful inspiration to you, and you had your own, shall we say, mobilization at home on this subject to urge you on. But this is all about mobilization on the outside, and Dr. Sandler, you did so much in that regard, and that is really what is important to know. Something this big, something that's transformative for our country can happen with this, the personalities. A Senator Biden, respected in every way throughout our country, so highly recognized to take on this cause. And Patsy Mink in the House of Representatives. But all the inside maneuvering in the world doesn't get you a success unless you have a public sentiment with you. President Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. And Dr. Sandler, thank you for that word. Over here, I was looking for you on that one. Thank you so much, Bernice, for your leadership on the outside to make all of this possible. Yeah, that's quite a statement. You didn't get the job because you came on too strong as a woman. Thank you for coming on too strong as a woman. You have made. It's important to know Patsy Mink was a woman of color, and as part of her legacy, of course, this legislation, she was always proud to have been part of it, but part of that legacy has to be the increased participation of many more minority women in every aspect of our lives. She was a leader way ahead of many of us in that regard. And one reason she told me I had to come because she was supporting me for leadership, but would be eventually a speakership. But she said, I have to make sure my people have to see that we have women in the leadership and that is respected in Congress. And therefore, I need you to talk to my folks about that. And it is, it's just a remarkable thing. Senator Mikulski is quite correct. You have to go to Seneca Falls just to see what is there. The museum is so fabulous, all of it. But it is really important to note that the Hall of Fame, it has so many women that we're all so proud of and know their work and introduced to others. But when you go to the home, for example, of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, which some of the suffragettes gathered there, she cooked and had all these children in rest, and she could hear down below from her home the domestic violence that was going on in some of those homes. She could hear it. She lived on the knoll, but she could hear it. And that was one of the motivators for her. And that was one of the motivations, right, Barbara, for the formation of the Women's Caucus, Violence Against Women internationally. And certainly that is one of the unifying in a bipartisan way for us. And we are still fighting some of that fight. But imagine the courage of those women at that time to leave home. They weren't even allowed to leave home alone, really, to leave home, travel the country, and to do so in a way that was so effective that we benefit from. So 90 years ago, over 90 years ago, the women's right to vote. Hallelujah, what a great thing, long overdue for our country. During World War II, the increased participation in the workforce. And wasn't that a fabulous thing that women helped win the war? Higher education of women throughout the 50s and after that in a much broader way. And then women in the professions, or women secretaries of state, the rest of it, and sky's the limit. But one of the missing links along the way for the unleashing of the full power of women that I hope that the spirit of Title IX will help us carry is to have quality, affordable child care for America's working families. It's never done, and it's really important for us to be able, for women, again, for their power, for their intellect, for our power, for our intellect and the rest, to be unleashed in a way that is healthy for all of our families. So I hope that some of the same mobilization and some of the same intellect and the rest that has gone on sustaining Title IX since we were blessed by the leadership of Senator Biden and Congresswoman Mink, some of that same enthusiasm will take us to this next stage, which I do think is a missing link. It's really important. I say to women, know your power. The Senator said something about the unique contribution that women have, each of us has to make. I had the privilege of serving as the first woman Speaker of the House. You know why? Because there were so many more women in the House who supported such an idea. Now, we're going to have a woman president one of these days soon, I just know. But one of the giant steps down that path to that place was the passage of Title IX. Thank you, Senator Byer, for your support. The House and in the Senate, and when the House, just speaking of the House, and I just spoke to some of the Republican women on my way over here, we all send you our very best regards and many good wishes for much, much future success. As I always say when it comes to women, more power to us. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for that generous testimonial. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you, Beth, for your leadership. I want to thank Ellen Riddleberger for nominating me for this wonderful honor. And I accept it with love and gratitude to my family, to my husband, Paul Pelosi, my husband of 50 years this September. With her daughter Madeline, Nancy Corinne, and my daughter Christine, who is here with her daughter Bella. There are 2 granddaughters. We have 7 grandsons, and they, with my daughter Jacqueline, my daughter Alexandra, and our son Paul, send their best wishes and look forward to visiting Seneca Falls where we can spend a much longer period of time. I accept the honor of receiving it with so many distinguished awardees today. To be in this company enhances this honor enormously for me. I'm so blessed. Thank you for living it. Every one of them, and the persons for whom they speak, the top of their field. And of course I accept it in recognition that none of the things that you mentioned would have happened without my colleagues, many of whom are here today. What an honor it is to be here on this occasion, but what a treat it is to be in Seneca Falls and to have been in Rochester yesterday. I really have sort of an attraction to this area for reasons other than Seneca Falls as well as Seneca Falls. And that's because our colleague Louise Slaughter, who represents this area in Congress, Louise Slaughter, all the time about the work ethic, the entrepreneurial spirit, the creativity in the arts, and you name it, it's here. And she just cannot say enough about it. However, I also am pleased to be here because when we saw earlier today the film and the pictures of the mill and where the new museum was going to be, it was right there on the Erie Canal. And Erie Canal was one of the first infrastructure projects, grand infrastructure projects in our country. Thomas Jefferson said, as he was building and buying new territory for our country, we have to have mobility. So this is an historic place in so many ways, has led the way. Here today, we're celebrating how this area led the way for the rights of women. 15 years ago, Louise invited us here. Many of the women members came to celebrate and observe the 150th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Declaration. And Rochester, to see the homelessness and the anthem, but to see it all here in the park. It was a transforming experience for all who came, because you could see firsthand and learn more about the courage that it took for these women to do what they did now 165 years ago. And what they said at the time, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal. And went on to say, such is now the necessity for women to demand the equal station to which they are entitled. So in the next few minutes, I will answer some of the questions that I have been asked by the press and by some of you as to what today means to me, to all of us. When I became a leader in the Congress, my colleagues have heard me tell this story over and over, but when I became the leader was after we had been to Seneca Falls a few years later. I went to my first meeting at the White House as the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives. And I wasn't having any apprehension about the occasion because I'd been to the White House many times as an appropriator, as an intelligence committee person. So I didn't even think about being apprehensive. When I went to the meeting, and the door closed behind me, and I saw the President, the Vice President, and the other leaders of Congress, House and Senate, Democratic and Republican, I realized that this was unlike any meeting that any woman had ever been to before in the White House. Not only me, but any woman. But I was there, was not my presence there to ride on the President's appointment, but as a representative of my caucus. And as I sat down, and President George W. Bush, ever gracious and welcoming, while he was speaking, at my chair, I felt very closed in. Very closed in. I didn't know what was happening, and I could vaguely pay attention to what he was saying. And then I realized that sitting on my chair with me was Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Ma, Alice Paul, Sojourner Truth, you name it. They were right there. It was very tight. I can't imagine what the President must have been thinking at the time as I was squeezing in to make room for them and others. And then I could hear him say, at last, we have a seat at the table. At last, we have a seat. And then they were gone. And my first thought was, we want more. We want more. And so how did I get from the kitchen to the Congress to that seat at the table? And what role models did I have on that path? Well, my first and foremost, my role model was my mother. She was a wonderful woman. She had 7 children. She as my father were very civically involved and always taught us that, true to our Catholic faith, we had a responsibility one to another to look after people. And the best way I can explain her to you is to read a little piece of a prayer that she wrote about her mother and about what moms mean to the world and what our responsibilities are and how grateful we are to have a good mother. And it goes like this. Mother, I think of you, guardian angel of my childhood. Who can fathom the real meaning of the word mother? Whose hearts are not filled with the memory of her who has not stopped loving us from the first moment of our existence, when like a ray of sunshine that beamed down into our cradle, when the fingers of care and worry had not yet touched our hearts. It was Mother who was always around, preventing their entrance into the holy island of childhood. Goes on and on, then it says, even when the word mother is spoken by an old man, it sounds like it comes from the lips of a child. Goes on, and then at the end it says, in a few words, Mother is God's co-helper and a radiant beam from the Mother of Mercy. That's part of what her prayer was. And of course, she wrote that in honor of her own mother, but it was a message to us as to how I could be a mother. I was 6 boys, 1 girl, so it was really a message from what to me. And she was my role model. My brother, Tommy, who's 11 years older than I, he used to say that during the Depression, if somebody would knock on the door, you don't ever know if they wanted a job, if they needed a housing project, if they needed whatever they needed, but 9 chances out of 10, they would end up at the dining room table because they needed food, and there was never any thought that anyone would be turned away. That was, again, our Catholic faith. That was our manifestation of it was in civic and community action. The way I got from getting married, having 5 children in 6 years, 50 years ago, and so involved in that and trying to remember my mother's words about what a mother should be, I, as was mentioned, had some involvement as a volunteer as a Democrat, because when our family, we were very proud of our Italian-American heritage, very proud of our heritage, very patriotically American, very devoutly Catholic, and very staunchly Democratic. And so that I had time for in my volunteer activities. And one day, the woman who was the member of Congress came to me and said, "I'm not going to run for re-election, you must run." And I mean, imagine a woman handing off to a woman. This is highly unusual. There simply just weren't that many women around. Sala Burton was her name, and I want you to hear this story about 16-year-olds and their moms. So for her, because I loved her, I contemplated. I never intended to run for office. Never did. Never. I was a behind-the-scenes person wanting to promote others. And then she was insisting that she would feel better if I would run for her seat. And so other people suggested that might be a good idea. So 4 of her children were already in college. So I went to our daughter Alexandra, who at that time was about 16 and a half. And I said, "Alexandra, Mommy has this opportunity to run for Congress. I love my life. You know, if one more year, because she was young for her class, one more year you would be in college. So if you don't want me to run, I'm happy not to run, and I'm happy to be home with you." And I said, "I might not even win. I'm just talking about running for Congress." To which she said, "Mother, get a life." Mother, get a life. I had never heard that expression before. This was 26 years ago. And so I had a life, but I had a congressional life when I went on to win. And here we are 26 years later. But what I'm really here to tell you about is where we go from here. What I said, what was your legacy getting this award? Where do you go from here? And I want to again salute my female colleagues in the House of Representatives, because we have decided, after observing the scene for a while, that incrementalism is not working for us. It's nice to keep adding, but we want more. And so we have to make our own environment. We keep making the battle in the context of an atmosphere that was not set up for the success of women. It was about just trying to beat your way into the door. And we think, I believe, there are 2 ways for us to change the environment, relate to policy, and it relates to politics. On July this year, on the 165th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Declaration, the women members of the House, with a few good men, stood with us there, and we saluted what happened in the words that were used of all men and women are created equal, and we decided and had worked together to form what would make the biggest difference. And our initiative was entitled, "When Women Succeed, America Succeeds." And springing from the Seneca Falls Convention, we said there are 3 things that we could do that would change the respect for women in the workplace. What would they be? And they would be the following. First of all, under the leadership of Rosa DeLauro, who is this is her brainchild, but working with all the other members, working with Donna Edwards of Maryland and Doris Matsoud, chair and vice chair of our Women's Caucus, they put together and studied and listened to people all over the country these three things. One, equal pay for equal work. Equal pay for doesn't sound very new, does it? But long overdue. And Rosa has the bill, the Paycheck Fairness Act. We were very proud. Rosa's bill was the Lily Ledbetter bill, named for Lily. And Lily, we could not be more honored. You are an icon. You are a heroine. We are so delighted that you are here today. The legislation was very important, but we still have to have pay equity. And one of the elements of it, of course, is also to raise the minimum wage. 62% of the people who make minimum wage are women, and we have to have better respect for those. Secondly, we have had, many of us were part of passing the family medical leave, which was very important, but for many it is not paid. So we want paid leave. Our suffragettes, they worked so hard. They worked so hard to get women to have the right to vote. In fact, when women got the right to vote, finally, decades later, the newspapers reported women given the right to vote. Now, that wasn't what happened. Women fought, women marched, women sacrificed, or women demanded, and then women got the right to vote, but nobody gave it to women. And it was a tremendous victory for America, not just for women, but for America. And then decades later, we had women in the workforce, World War II, Rosie the Riveter, and so that was new. All these women leaving home to go to work. That was good. And then we had the higher education of women in the professions are choosing to stay home or have whatever job they wanted, and perhaps at the professional level. But the missing link in all of that was affordable, quality child care. Affordable quality care. So our observance of the 165th anniversary of the Seneca Falls Convention is this initiative, When Women Succeed, America Succeeds, and taking us all to the next step. To do this, we need the outside mobilization to make it happen. So that's on the policy side. If we have women free to follow their passion and their profession or stay home, whatever it is, but they have those options. And it's good for men too. It's good for families. On the political side, again, if we're going to make change, instead of electing 10 more women, whatever it is, and we're very proud of the way our numbers have increased, we must change the environment. And I promise you this, if you reduce the role of money in politics and increase the level of civility in politics, you will have many more women. Both, you'll be able to see our country benefit from women in our national security, women in our economic security, women in the academic world, the athletic world, you name it, every place. This will be the most wholesome and successful thing we can do for American competitiveness. And so we have instituted a DARE on this reducing the role of money, disclose where does money come from, amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United, reform our system to increase the power of small donors in the system and be empowered. Remove DARE, and across the country people know that it has to be done, and when it is done, more women, more minorities, more young people will have more opportunity to serve our country in public office. And by the way, I'm very proud that these women here today are part of the House Democratic Caucus. Is over 50% women, minorities, and LGBT community members. Is that right? people ask me, why do you do this? How do you have so much energy to do this all the time? And the only reason I ever ran for public office in the first place was because being a mom and seeing all the love and attention and opportunity that my children, our relatives, all the rest of the children around us had, and realizing that 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty, it was a completely intolerable, and has been a completely intolerable idea to me. Not to mention children throughout the world, by incident of birth, who have so many needs that are not being attended to. So that's why when I accepted the gavel to be the Speaker of the House when I did, I invited the children to come up because I wanted to accept the gavel on behalf of all of America's children and beyond. And so, in accepting this wonderful award, I want my colleagues to come up so I can accept it with all of them. Come on up, everybody wants to speak. First, New Yorkers, Anita Lowy, Louis Slaughter, of course, Carolyn Maloney, and Congresswoman Lydia Velasquez. The 4 of them have been chairs, historic chairs of committees and women chairs, and they will be again. Then from California, there are 9 of us. Can you imagine that there are 9 of us from California? We have Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, a champion on breast cancer. Lois Katz, an expert provider herself and a champion passed the Affordable Care Act. Susie Davis, a champion for women in the military. Doris Matsui, Janet Jakowski, a co-chair of meeting the needs of older women in Medicare and Social Security. Janet Jakowski and Janet Jakowski from Illinois. Jackie Spear, our champion against fighting sexual abuse in the military. Barbara Bain, champion of issues that relate to women and the poor. Janice Hall, a champion of women's rights and choose. That was just in California. And now, as I mentioned, Rosa DeLauro, she's the godmother of all of us. Donna Evans of Maryland. Debbie McCollum of Minnesota, Debbie. Wayne Moore, where's Wayne Moore? She's coming. The author of the Violence Against Women Act. I hasten to add that when we first had the Violence Against Women Act in the 90s, Louis Slaughter, she was the first and foremost author. Of New Hampshire, and Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas. All of them champions in the Congress of the United States, all of them fighters for the Affordable Care Act, where no longer being a woman is a pre-existing medical condition. It's not just about women for women, it's about women being respected as well as men being respected. It's about diversity of opinion. It's about changing the environment. So these women are there to make it happen. We want their numbers to grow and increase. I wanted them to be here to honor the Women's Hall of Fame by saying to you, what you are doing is important by recognizing women and by paying our respects to the other honorees as well. Thank you. So I accept